Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Joseph's seed. We do have the end of the story now, the second half, part 2. It's completed. So it's about high time I talked about it. To get going here, I guess the best place to start is going to be to look at the unanswered questions from Far Cry 5. Questions such as, was Joseph's seed crazy? What was he really doing? Did he really believe everything he said? And ultimately, the question on everybody's minds, was Joseph's seed right? He answers that for us amazingly. I want to point out that along this whole story, we've actually met two different Joseph seeds. There's the very high energy, high charisma, could convince you to do anything Joseph seed we meet in Far Cry 5. He's the one who was really able to create all the hell and havoc he caused. We meet him again in New Dawn. We only meet that version of Joseph seed though in a vision. We never meet him as a man. The captain never actually meets that man. When we go to New Eden for the first time, and we have that vision trip around Dutch's Island, that's when we meet the original Joseph seed. The way he talks, how he uses his words to sort of manipulate, that's the Joseph seed that the deputy knows, that we met in Far Cry 5. Of course, we quickly learn that people seem to think Joseph seed is a dead man, and we also very quickly learn that's not true at all. When we meet older Joseph seed, he is truly only a shell of the man that we met in Far Cry 5. He is definitely beaten and degraded down to a level that he no longer carries the power that he carried before. And even the way he talks and acts is changed. He no longer acts very loud and boisterous. He is definitely a much quieter man. He picks and chooses his words and says fewer of them, able to make the same point though. Whether that's through wisdom or just old age, it's kind of left up to the viewer to decide. But where we really get to the meat of Joseph's seed is in the final moments of the New Dawn story. We're going to skip ahead here quite a lot, all the way to the moment when Ethan shows up at the Highwayman dinner and offers up New Eden for the taking. That is the moment that we start to learn all the answers to the previous questions. Let's run it through real quick. Ethan hands over New Eden to the Highwaymen. The Highwaymen attack and destroy New Eden, killing everybody there. Ethan runs off to his father's hideout in an attempt to get the gift that he thought he was being denied. Ethan gets that gift, and that gift eats his soul alive and kills him. Then Joseph seed asks us to kill him there on the spot out of grief. There's a lot more to it obviously, and that's what I want to get into, want to dissect. To start out, we ask, why is this the moment that Joseph seed finally breaks down and loses it all? He's held up to much worse over the years. He lost John, Jacob, and Faith, and was able to put up with it and get over them rather quickly, to be honest, and replace them with the deputy. He says it himself, I lost my family, so now you will be my family. But he's not able to take the loss of his son, which is honestly kind of insane, because he's killed one of his own children before, a baby nonetheless. So we know loss is sort of nothing to Joseph seed. Why is the loss of his son, someone he apparently seems to care very little about? He does not want much contact with his son at all. Here it is. Here is why I think Joseph seed finally breaks down. And it starts with the fact that I believe He finally saw what he was really doing to people. There was no more veil. There was no more, I'm doing it because God told me to hide behind. He lost literally everything. He had absolutely nothing. He didn't even have somebody like the deputy that he had at the end of 5 and the hope that he had for a new world. He had nothing. It was all ripped from him. By his own son, nonetheless. Which is interesting because he neglects his son because he believes God kind of wants him to neglect his son. God has told him that Ethan is not the person who should receive the gift. God has told him it is somebody else. But Ethan feels that he is the son of Joseph's seed, a man who is worshipped by every single person Ethan ever grew up around. That he feels he should have some sort of position. He's denied that, of course, time and time again. And that is the trigger. The fact that Joseph's neglect led his son to sin, led his son to be a truly evil person who would eventually bring the death of everything Joseph held dear and worked for. All because Joseph believed it was what God wanted him to do. Ethan is a very, very sad person. He's left in a very horrible state. He has power, but not enough of it to do anything with it, and also too much of it to live a normal life. He's abandoned by his mother and neglected by his father, but left to lead a group of people who wholly worship his father as a god. But see, Ethan is nothing more than a man who controls their day-to-day lives. This is what leads Ethan to hand over New Eden. And of course, because of all of Ethan's bad acts and betrayals, actually asking the captain to tell the people of New Eden that his father is dead, even if the captain doesn't know if that's true or not. Even if the captain were to go on the journey and come back not finding Joseph's seed, wanting him to lie to the people, handing over New Eden to the highwaymen. Ethan's soul is full of sin. And when he takes the gift, as we know, anybody who takes it has to fight their sin, and through the process of taking the gift, they become clean. They let their sin go. They physically kill their sin. Or at least that's the lore behind the gift. So when Ethan eats the apple, he is destroyed by it. Not unlike Adam and Eve. Couldn't stay away from one thing that they wholeheartedly focused on, even though they sort of had everything. Ethan isn't in the position of having everything, of course. He's in a much darker position. But his soul was full of sin, and it caused him to destroy everything Joseph loved, including himself. Ethan destroyed his own self through his own sin. And I think in the very end, Joseph realized that maybe he was misinterpreting what he thought God wanted. Maybe he really wasn't the person God wanted to create a new world. Maybe he really wasn't the person God wanted to lead these people to a new life. Nothing went as Joseph planned. He thought the world he would come out on would be a happier world, that all people would be equal, not that the entire power balance of the world would be destroyed and leave this huge void for new evils to just take a massive root. He also believed that it would be easy to create New Eden, and of course he quickly realizes it was not an easy thing to do. He thought the world he would come into would have all the resources they would need to very easily just create an amazing place. So there in the final moments, Joseph realizes, truthfully, this is all his fault. and he is able to finally see through his own eyes the pain he causes others. He used to be able to tune that out and just put it off as it's needed pain, or it's because I'm doing God's work and they are sinners. He can't anymore. That illusion is shattered. The moment Joseph Seed asks you to pull the trigger is probably the most sane thing Joseph Seed ever did. He is truthfully clear in the mind at that moment. The moment that he decides that he cannot go on because of the great guilt he has in that second over all the things he has done. Joseph cannot move forward anymore. So of course he asks you to kill him, send him to God where he can pay for what he has done. He wants God to finally talk to him. And of course he believes the only way to do that is to die right there. So it brings up the question, was Joseph Seed a sane man? Was he really being spoken to by God, or was he just crazy? And truthfully, I'm going to lean to the latter on that. And I can tell you the exact moment I think Joseph Seed snapped. And it all comes from a story he tells us, something that a lot of people might have missed. All the way back in Far Cry 5, we are captured by Jacob's warriors, taken to the Veterans Hospital, where Joseph shows up and tells us a story about how he lost his wife and killed his child. I honestly think that it was the loss of his wife that caused him to break and created the man that we know as Joseph Seed, the man that we meet when we walk into that white church. And in the very last seconds of New Dawn, all of that is gone. It's amazing how Joseph Seed turned into the monster that he was because of a great loss, but then also turned into, I wouldn't say good person, but clear-minded, remorseful person in the last few seconds caused by another great loss. I honestly believe that by the way developers work and all that, killing Joseph Seed right there will be the canon ending of the game. That's why I'm talking about it like it happened. Obviously you have a choice not to, but by the way killing Joseph Seed was displayed to us, it's probably going to be the canon ending. Let's be honest. So, he's gone. The tale of Joseph Seed is coming to a close. But there's still that one question hanging in the air that everybody has been asking since the end of Far Cry 5. Is Joseph Seed right? Did he really know what was going to happen, whether through God's word or just good ability of reading situations? And I think he was right and he was wrong. It was very obvious by the way radios talked and things like that, that the world that's portrayed in Far Cry 5 was on an edge. It was on a verge and it was heading over, no question asked. It didn't take somebody being talked to by God to see that coming, that the world was going to fall into major destruction. Truthfully, in the end, I think Joseph Seed told us he was wrong. He was not truly sent there by God to save anyone. He was not sent there by God to create a new world. He was just a man who convinced a few people to follow him and do very, very bad things for him. A man who will leave a massive scar on the face of Hope County forever. It's sort of a cautionary tale. How one bad incident happening to somebody, the loss of a loved one, could send them into such a mindless rage that they would convince themselves by any means necessary that they were in the right, and the massive amount of damage that can follow them. The residents of Hope County will never forget the name Joseph Seed. Even after the bombs fell, that name will be said for years and years to come. even with New Eden burnt to the ground, even with Joseph dead, he has left a massive impact on the world that he left behind. Truthfully, if you look at this from the right angle, Joseph Seed is actually the protagonist of the Far Cry 5 and New Dawn story. The story is about Joseph Seed. It's not about the deputy. It's not about the captain. It's not even really about the people of Hope County. Yes, their stories and their backstories matter, but they all take a side role. There's one man who had such an impact on this story that I think in truth, this story is Joseph Seed's story. But sadly, that story has now come to an end. And if I had to wrap it up anyway, I'd wrap it up by saying Joseph Seed is just a man who really wanted to do good, but had zero clue how to do good, and ended up doing horribly unspeakable things to people because he did not accept that they wouldn't accept his charity, so he forced his help upon people. That is really the end, though. That is Joseph Seed, said, done, in the grave. And just like how Joseph Seed is over, so is this video. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you like Far Cry New Dawn, anything Far Cry really, go ahead, go down, click on the rubber ducky, you go to my channel, check out the videos, watch a few. If you like them, hey, maybe go ahead and subscribe. If you have any thoughts about this video or anything like that, feel free to share them in the comment section. I love getting comments like that. It's really awesome to get fan feedback and things like that and be able to read through those, respond to some of them. Really awesome. I'd really appreciate that. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for me today. Once again, I appreciate everything you guys do for me, and as always, I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day.